Vince McMahon and WWE have clearly made some exceptional signings over the decades. Yet for every masterstroke acquisition, there's often been an absolute clanger. And McMahon has definitely signed some talents who have proven to be unmitigated disasters. Of course, some of those at first dreadful signings may have managed to steady the ship and ride out the initial storm surrounding their hiring. But others simply never recovered from their first setback, and it was all a bit downhill from there. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 wrestlers WWE immediately regretted hiring. Number 10. Nathan Jones. At 6'11" and a ripped 320 pounds, it's easy to see why Vince McMahon would look at Nathan Jones and instantly begin to imagine the Scrooge McDuck levels of money he could make from the Australian. So impressed with Jones was McMahon, the rookie was fast-tracked into The Undertaker's WrestleMania 19 program, only for those mania plans of Undertaker and Jones versus Big Show and A-Train to be changed almost as quickly as they were first made. It soon became apparent that he was nowhere near ready to be on the WWE main roster, let alone to be tagging with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, goddammit. Jones made a brief appearance at the showcase of the Immortals, but he'd soon be sent down to Ohio Valley Wrestling to hone his skills. Said skills were never actually to be honed, however, and Jones would quit WWE later that year. Number 9. Chronic. With the invasion angle still playing out between Team WWF and Team Alliance, September 2001 saw WWE sign the Chronic tandem of Bryan Adams and Brian Clark, both having had previous spells with Vince McMahon's organization, and Adams being a big-time buddy of The Undertaker, that guy again. It looked as if Chronic were destined to become a regular part of the tag team ranks where they turned up to decimate Kaientai on an episode of SmackDown. Just a matter of days later, Adams and Clark would lose to Undertaker and Kane at the Unforgiven pay-per-view, and that match was so bad that Chronic's WWE future was instantly in the balance. A couple of TV matches followed, but Clark was soon fired due to his unsafe in-ring work, and Adams was sent to the developmental system of the Heartland Wrestling Association. By November, Bryan Adams would give his notice, and both members of Chronic would be out of WWE just over a month after they arrived. Man, that's quick. Number 8. Marty Jannetty. After nearly a decade out of the company, the former Intercontinental Champion Marty Jannetty resurfaced as part of Shawn Michaels' WrestleMania 21 rivalry with Kurt Angle. Marty had left the company back in 1996, and upon turning up at Michaels' side in 2005, it looked as if the undeniably talented Jannetty hadn't missed a step. During that rehiring, fans saw Marty and Shawn have a grin-inducing reunion as the Rockers before Jannetty and Angle tore it up in a 20-minute contest. Once Mania was out of the way, Marty was officially hired by WWE, with the idea of him serving as a mentor figure for young talents on the rise. WWE was left to rue that decision almost immediately when Marty was arrested for a DUI and for driving without a license, which prompted the company to fire him only a matter of weeks into his return. Marty Jannetty would actually be rehired another 2 times in 2006, both brief spells, both ending in Jannetty's firing. You can't say they didn't try. Number 7. Sin Cara. No, not the more recent Jorge Arias version of Sin Cara, but the original Luis Uribe version of Sin Cara. Upon signing with WWE in 2011, the then Mystico was heralded as a truly huge signing by the company, to the point that the ever-wise call was made to often hype this masked grappler up as being the heir apparent to Rey Mysterio, because that always works out really well, doesn't it? Like so many similar stars with such pomp and circumstance surrounding their impending arrival in WWE, poor Sin Cara was soon to fall short. Quite literally. Debuting in April 2011 on Raw by coming to the aid of Daniel Bryan following a post-match attack from Sheamus, Sin Cara's flamboyant entrance into the squared circle saw him trip over the top rope. And from that moment on, it only became further and further apparent that Luis Uribe's time in WWE was destined to come to an end sooner rather than later. Further troubles were ahead for the original Sin Cara when a ruptured patella tendon suffered at that year's Survivor Series put him out of action for 6 months. And by the time Luis Uribe departed WWE in January 2011, his tenure with the company was viewed as an absolute dud due to injury issues, style clashes, and questions over the former Mystico's desire. Number 6. Kevin Nash. While the summer of Punk and the subsequent fallout from it can be questioned at several turns, one of the biggest head scratchers of that time in WWE was the call to involve Kevin Nash in the burgeoning beef between Punk and Triple H. Big Sexy's return at SummerSlam 2011 instantly ran into a roadblock when it turned out that Nash wasn't actually medically cleared to wrestle. Nash would appear on WWE TV to interfere in matches, yet his physical limitations stipulations meant that Big Daddy Cool didn't actually compete in an official match until December of that year, just shy of 4 months after turning up at SummerSlam. We still never got that CM Punk match, of course, for Kev instead faced his buddy Triple H at the 2011 TLC pay-per-view, before quietly departing WWE. By 2011, it was unquestionable that Nash's body was simply no longer up to the rigors of even a part-time wrestling schedule, even if WWE were initially hopeful of getting one more run out of the NWO icon. Number 5, Braden Walker. For a good couple of years, Chris Harris and James Storm were arguably the best tag team in the entire industry under the America's Most Wanted name. And as that tandem came to an end as 2006 drew to a close, it looked for all the world that Wildcat Chris Harris was set to be shot to the moon. Only it didn't quite work out like that. Barely a year after America's Most Wanted's breakup, Harris signed with WWE and was assigned to the relaunched ECW brand as Braden Walker. Macho Man Randy Savage once famously quipped wise about a cup of coffee in the big time, and Braden Walker's stint under the WWE umbrella was barely enough time to boil a kettle. The lifespan of Walker's WWE career was just 2 matches in before the company decided that they'd made a major mistake in hiring the multiple-time TNA Tag Team champion. Online reports suggested that Harris's backstage demeanor rubbed WWE brass the wrong way, while other reports suggested that he likewise struggled to adapt to the famed WWE lifestyle. Either way, he was out of here. Number 4, Scott Hall. Bringing in Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Hulk Hogan in 2002 was viewed as a bit of a risk both in a real-life sense and also in how the trio's arrival was depicted in WWE storylines. Vince McMahon was bringing in the New World Order to poison the WWE. And in Hall, McMahon clearly got a very real dose of the controversy for which he was seeking. The NWO arrived in WWE at February 2002's No Way Out pay-per-view, and Hall would find himself swiftly fired by the company just over 2 months later. It was soon far too apparent to WWE higher-ups that Hall's well-publicized demons were still present, as shown by the bad guy's extremely drunk behavior on the infamous plane ride from hell. And it was just a matter of days after this flight back from the UK that Scott Hall's WWE contract was terminated due to ongoing substance abuse issues. Number 3, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho himself has talked about how his early days in the then WWF were miserable for all involved. Sure, his August 1999 debut itself still stands as one of the greatest in wrestling history. Yet the bloom was soon off the rose where Y2J was concerned. The infamous Jericho curse struck to make the Winnipeg natives' in-ring bow against Road Dogg a dud. And Vince McMahon, along with WWE decision-makers, soon questioned whether signing Jericho was a wise move altogether. With Vince unimpressed with his new signing, Jericho soon went from verbally jousting with The Rock to barely being on TV. And even when he was given something to do, his rivalry with China only added to the very real backstage heat the Ayatollah of rock and roller had on him. It would take Chris Jericho several months to truly find his feet in WWE, to the point where Jericho himself even contemplated quitting the company. Thankfully, said feet would be found, and Jericho would go on to cement himself as one of the all-time greats. Number 2, Scott Steiner. The fact that WWE fired Scott Steiner not even 2 years into his 3-year contract should give you an idea of just how well Big Papa Pump's second stint with Vince McMahon's company actually went. Being fair to Scott, the genetic freak's body was letting him down by the time of that WWE return. Having spent the past couple of years carrying his gigantic frame, and with one of his ankles being fused into a walking position, regardless of how much Scott Steiner wanted it, regardless of how much wrestling fans wanted it, and regardless of how much WWE management wanted it, the multiple-time WCW World Champion just couldn't compete in ring to a level that was reflective of the main event spot the company had reserved for him. Steiner didn't have an official match until 2 months into this WWE run, with smoke and mirrors being used to sell Scotty's burgeoning feud with Triple H. By now it had been made clear to WWE that the Scott Steiner they'd signed wasn't the Scott Steiner of old, and the rest of Freakzilla's WWE tenure would be spent in the lower mid-card ranks before he was eventually released in August 2004. Number 1, Buff Bagwell. Did anybody other than Buff ever really think that Buff was the stuff? That is the question. Buff Bagwell, of course, migrated to WWE once the purchase of WCW was completed back in 2001. Buff and Booker T would do battle for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship on a July July episode of Raw. And while Booker would go on to become a mainstay of WWE over the next 2 decades, it didn't quite work out so well for Buff Daddy. Famously, Bagwell was fired by WWE just a week after his WWE TV debut. In just that 1 week, the former American maid had managed to piss off WWE brass by feigning injury, getting his ass handed to him in a backstage fight he instigated with Shane Helms, and by having his mother Judy phone into WWE HQ to complain about Buff's travel schedule. There were many names WWE wished they could have signed back when they assimilated WCW in 2001. But in the case of Buff Bagwell, this was the other way around. A name they did sign, but one they instantly wished they didn't. And that is our list. Know of any other wrestlers WWE immediately regretted hiring? Let me know all about them in the comment section below. And do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button. Also, ring the bell while you're there. Also, why not head on over to whatculture.com and read some more awesome articles just like this bad boy. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having the day you absolutely deserve, an awesome one with all the rainbows and colors and joy. And I'm sure I'll see you very soon.